the polygraph to determine if a person is telling the truth. Polygraph test is commonly known as lie detector test. It procedure that detects several physiological indicators including pulse, blood pressure, respiration, and skin conductivity, which indicate if a person is being untruthful when asked a series of questions. So, why do people lie? I believe that some people have their reasons why they commit to these wrongdoings. It's either to escape from punishment. For example, nangupit ka and nalaman ng magulang mo na kulang na yung pera niya at galit na galit siya. So, ang ginawa ko, hindi mo inamin kasi takot kang mapunish sa bagay na yung ginawa. And some reasons why do people lie because it may benefits them. So, next question is, what are the different types of liars? There are different types of liars. First is the panic liars. It is the one who's in order to avoid the consequence of a confession, they are afraid of embarrassment and it is a serious blow their ego. They believe that confession will just make the matter worse. Next is the occupational liars. These are the practical liars and lies that when it has a higher payoff than telling the truth. Next is the tournament liars are those who love to be and are excited by the challenge of not being detected. For them, an interview is a contest and once in, this person realizes that they will probably be convicted but will not give anyone the satisfaction of hearing them or her confesses. The one that people will believe that the law is punishing an innocent person. Next is the psychopathic liars are the most difficult type. This person have no conscience and shows no regret for dishonesty and no manifestation of guilt. And next is the ethnological liars. These are those who thought not to be a squeal, try cry or to shrill voice used by underworld gang in order for their member not to reveal any secret of their organization. Next is the pathological liars. These are the persons who cannot distinguish right from wrong due to the sick mind. Or in short, they are insane. And lastly is the black liars. These are the person who always pretends what he is and what he thinks of himself. So, what are the three components of polygraph instrument? This includes the cardiosphygmograph, the pneumograph, and the galvanograph. Blood pressure and heart rate are measured by the cardiosphygmograph component of the polygraph, which consists of a blood pressure cuff that is wrapped around the subject's arms. During the questioning, the cuff remains inflated. The movement of blood through the subject's veins generates a sound that is transmitted through the air in the cuff to a bellows that amplifies the sound. The magnitude of the sound relates to the blood pressure and the frequency of the changes in the sound relates to the heart rate. The pneumograph component of the polygraph records the subject's respiratory rate. One tube is placed around the subject's chest and the second is placed around his or her abdomen. These tubes are filled with air. When the subject breathes, changes in the air pressures in the tubes are recorded in the polygraph. And next is the galvanograph. This is the section records the amount of perspiration produced. It consists of electrical sensors called galvanometers that are attached to the subject's fingertips. The skin of the fingertips contains a high density of sweat glands, making them a good location to measure perspiration. As the amount of sweat touching the galvanometers increases, the resistance of the electrical current measured decreases, and these changes are recorded by the polygraph. Most forensic psychologists or FPS consider the cardiosphygmograph and the pneumograph components more informative than the galvanograph. So, there are different questions asked by the examiners in polygraph testings. And these are labeled as relevant questions, cultural questions, irrelevant questions, and guilty knowledge questions. So, let me define you first the relevant question functionally. It is questions directly related to the function of an investigation. In the investigation of the said crime, for example, a relevant question might be, did you steal the money? Or even more specifically, did you take 5,000 pesos from Mr. Clyde's pocket? And next is control questions. Like relevant questions, vary in breadth and type. One type of control to questions concerns what is hypothesized to be the same kind of issue that is under investigation at the time of examination. For example, a control question for "Did you take the 5,000 from Mr. Clyde's wallet?" Next is irrelevant question. This is another type of question used, in part, for purpose of comparison to response to relevant question is the so-called irrelevant question. Example of irrelevant questions commonly used in investigations are you called cutie or is it Tuesday? And lastly is the guilty knowledge question. It aims to detect information about a crime that only a guilty subject would have. Some information might include details about the site of the crime or the means of committing it, such as the type of murder weapon used. Next is who are the pioneers? The pioneers. Cesar Lombroso. He is an Italian scientist employed the first scientific instrument to detect deception. His invention is hydrospigmograph. This is measured changes in pulse and blood pressure when suspects were questioned about involvement of a specific offense. In 1914, Vittorio Binuzzi successfully detected deception with a pneumograph. So, what is pneumograph? An instrument that graphically measures and examines inhalation and exhalation. Benussi thus demonstrated that changes in breathing patterns accompany deception. Next, in 1917, further research by William Marston dealt with the sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer, this is which was used to obtain periodic discontinuous blood pressure recordings during the course of an examination. So, I will explain scientific and early method of detecting deception. The polygraph is the best known technique for psychological detection of deception. The goal of all of these techniques is to detect deception by analyzing signals of changes in the body that cannot normally be detected by human observation. The early methods in detecting deception, actually all the ancient methods, could be classified as a trial by either torture, combat, or ordeal. Torture was used to make the presumed guilty person confess his guilt.